There's a truth about reality that no one's had the courage to tell you. Everything you see, touch, and feel might be nothing more than a carefully programmed illusion. A living simulation, responding not to the laws of matter, but to invisible codes written in consciousness. And the most unsettling part, these codes may be getting activated or sabotaged without you even realizing it. Throughout history, ancient masters have whispered about laws that govern the universe far beyond ordinary physics. Laws that shape fate, relationships, health, and prosperity. Laws that operate in silence, like hidden gears moving every detail of your existence. But why has no one spoken openly about them? What lies behind this centuries-old silence? And what happens when you begin to see what you were never allowed to see? In what follows, you'll understand why you've never heard about this, and how this secret could change everything. The first law: everything starts in the invisible. The vibration that creates reality. Have you ever had the feeling that something was about to happen, even without any evidence? An intuition that arrives before the facts, as if your mind already knows something your eyes can't yet see. Science calls this extrasensory perception, but some say it's more than that. That it's the vibrational field of consciousness picking up signals from a universe that speaks in silence. What if the world you see is just the shadow of what truly exists? Modern physics has already shown that everything is made of energy in constant motion. Even the densest matter vibrates. That means every thought, every emotion, every belief you carry emits a frequency. And what resonates attracts. But what few understand is that this vibration isn't just a consequence of how we feel. It's a tool for creation. Reality, in this context, is like a canvas, reacting to the invisible. Brushstrokes of your mind. Think of an old radio. You turn the dial to find a station. If you tune it wrong, all you hear is noise. But when you get it right, music appears. Now imagine your whole life is a broadcast. Who's controlling the frequency? Is it your conscious desires or emotional? Programming you don't even know you carry? The question here isn't what do you want, but with what energy are you asking? Neuroscience research suggests that an observer's attention can alter the behavior of subatomic particles. This means your consciousness, the simple act of perceiving, already interferes with matter. The universe responds to the way you observe it. But if that's true, why do we still feel like life happens to us instead of through us? Are we really in control, or just reacting to what's been vibrated in the silence of the unconscious? What's most disturbing is that many people live in frequencies they don't even recognize. They repeat patterns, feel stuck, and blame the outside world. But what if the root of it all lies in a misaligned vibrational field, unseen but decisive? How can you identify what you're emitting? And more importantly, how do you change a vibration you can't see but feel in the outcomes of your life? What if the reality you call life is just the echo of your own vibration, looping until you finally learn how to tune it? The second law: attraction or programming. The not-so-romantic secret behind desire. You attract what you vibrate. That phrase is everywhere, as if it were the magic key to the universe. But what if it's only part of the truth? What if, in reality, your life is driven not by what you desire, but by what was programmed into you before you even learned to want? The law of attraction is often romanticized, as if just thinking positively will make everything align. But the field where this law truly operates isn't the surface. It's the subconscious mind. Neuroscience studies show that over 90% of our decisions are made unconsciously. That means even when you think you're in control, there's a hidden mind, silent, automatic, guiding your steps. This mind holds everything: childhood trauma, inherited fears, beliefs that aren't even yours. And it's this mind that emits your true vibration. While you say, "I want love," you might actually be vibrating with a fear of abandonment, And the universe? It doesn't hear your words. It feels your frequency. Picture your mind as an iceberg. The visible tip, your conscious desires, is small. The submerged part is massive and dangerous if you ignore its power. That's where real magnetism lives. Carl Jung once said, "What you resist persists." And when you don't know what's vibrating in the depths, everything you desire becomes self-sabotage. You get close to achieving something, but something inexplicable causes it all to collapse. But is it really inexplicable? Psychology calls this internal dissonance. Spirituality calls it energetic misalignment. The name doesn't matter. What matters is the repetition of the same outcomes, even when you want something different. You want to grow, but something in you freezes. You dream big, but feel undeserving. And just like that, without realizing it, your vibration doesn't reflect your desire, it reflects your pain. And the universe, impartial, responds to what's vibrating, not to what's being asked. The cruelest part of this law is that it works perfectly, even when it hurts us. Because it doesn't distinguish between good or bad, it only attracts what you're in sync with. It's like a cosmic mirror that doesn't reflect what you want to see, but what you truly are on the inside. And when that reflection scares you, your first instinct is to blame the world. But the world is just obeying what you're vibrating, even if you never consciously chose that programming. What if everything you can't seem to achieve is actually what your subconscious mind is trying to protect you from reaching? The third law, the cause behind the mirror. Nothing is accidental. Nothing that happens is random. That statement might sound uncomfortable, even unfair, in the face of the pain many people go through. But what if it's not about blame, but about origin? The law of cause and effect reveals that every experience has a seed, even if it's invisible. Coincidences? Accidents? To consciousness, these are just names we give to what we don't yet understand. What seems like a twist of fate today might just be the reflection of something planted long ago, by you or by those who came before. Carl Jung warned, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." And that may be one of the most unsettling ideas in modern psychology, because it suggests that what we experience isn't just the result of the present, but of hidden causes, often buried in layers so deep they seem non-existent. But they do exist, and they keep operating, like silent gears turning behind life's events. Epigenetics has already shown that traumatic experiences can be passed down for generations. In other words, you might be carrying pain that isn't even yours, but now it's your responsibility to transform it. Patterns of scarcity, self-sabotage, abandonment, repeating like a family echo. You think you've made conscious choices, but what if those choices were shaped by an internal script you never wrote, only memorized? Every overreaction, every cycle that returns with a new name, every situation that repeats itself, even in new settings, all of it might be a sign of an invisible cause asking to be acknowledged. Life doesn't punish, it reveals. And if you can observe the effects with enough attention, they point to what needs to be reclaimed, rewritten, or released. But that takes courage. Courage to look in the mirror and see beyond the reflection. It's as if every hardship were a disguised question. Where does this really come from? And the answer is almost never in what happened yesterday. It's in what was neglected, forgotten, buried. Maybe it's a memory, a repressed emotion, a pattern you inherited. Something that's waiting for your attention, not to punish you, but to be transformed. Because true freedom doesn't come from running from the past, but from giving it new meaning. What if the life you're living today is just the mirror of causes you never noticed? And what if everything could change the moment you discover the invisible origin of your own effects? The fourth law, correspondence, the cosmic mirror, that never lies as above, so below, as within, so without. This ancient phrase, attributed to Hermes Trismegistus, may sound poetic until you begin to notice the reflections. The law of correspondence states that the universe is a constant mirror, reflecting back to you exactly what vibrates within you. But it's not an ordinary mirror. It doesn't show you what you want to see. It shows you what you need to see. And that's where the discomfort begins. Because sometimes what bothers us in others is exactly what we can't admit about ourselves. Modern psychology calls this projection. You get annoyed by someone's arrogance without realizing your own need for control. You admire someone's courage while ignoring how afraid you are to be vulnerable. The world becomes a screen, displaying parts of you through other faces. But what if this projection isn't just a mental mechanism? What if it's a code built into the universe, designed to reveal what's hidden? Many try to change the world around them, end relationships, move to a new city, switch careers, only to keep encountering the same conflicts. That's because the mirrors rearrange themselves, but never disappear. The internal pattern always creates an external reflection. It's like living in a house of mirrors where you try to change the image without ever questioning the face. How many times have you thought the problem was someone else, only to realize the discomfort lived within you? If you see scarcity, chaos, or rejection around you, maybe the world isn't actually like that. Maybe it's a reflection of what you carry, without even knowing it. Consciousness doesn't judge, it simply manifests, like a hologram projecting outward what's vibrating inside. And the more you resist the reflection, the more it intensifies, trying to get your attention. Because the universe doesn't want to punish you. It wants to show you there is hidden intelligence in these mirrors, a force trying to guide you back to your center. But it can only do that when you stop fighting the reflections and start listening to what they're trying to say. Behind every irritation, there's a call for healing. Behind every admiration, a reminder of what you also are, but have forgotten. Reality leaves clues all the time, but how many of them are you ready to decipher? What if everything you criticize, fear, or admire in others is just your own soul trying to speak to you in a way you haven't yet understood? The fifth law, rhythm, the invisible pulse that controls your life without warning. Life pulses. And it pulses with a precision no clock can measure. The law of rhythm reminds us that everything in the universe moves in cycles, day and night, tides, seasons, heartbeats. But what most people don't realize is that this same invisible movement flows through our thoughts, emotions, relationships, and achievements. There are moments of expansion and moments of retreat. The problem is, we've been taught to value only the rise, the fall, the silence, the emptiness. These cause panic. Have you ever wondered why everything sometimes flows and suddenly stalls for no apparent reason? Maybe it's not bad luck or a block. Maybe it's the natural rhythm of your consciousness adjusting its frequency. Neuroscience shows that even brainwaves oscillate according to our emotional states. This means your mind is constantly surfing different rhythms, but instead of listening to these cycles, most people fight against them. And that's where the exhaustion begins. Ancient wisdom understood this. In Taoism, for instance, fluidity is a virtue. Fighting the flow is what causes suffering. But our culture glorifies constant action. Grow, produce, rush, as if slowing. Down meant failure, when in truth, even the universe expands and contracts in waves. So why do we think we should be linear, steady, unchanging? Nature isn't like that. The cosmos isn't like that. Why do we insist on being? The issue isn't the rhythm itself, but our resistance to it. Because we've grown used to judging the moment we're in. If it's a good moment, we want it to last. If it's a bad one, we try to escape. But rhythm doesn't serve our preferences. It serves our awakening. And often what we call a crisis is just a new cycle beginning. Still, silent, still in the dark. There is wisdom in the apparent chaos. meaning in the pause. A surfer doesn't try to control the ocean. He learns to dance with the wave. Maybe that's what we're missing, to stop fighting the rhythm and start listening to what it's trying to teach us. Because as long as you try to force a harvest during the season of sowing, you'll only reap frustration. The right time cannot be rushed, but it can be respected. What if everything that seems stuck in your life is just the universe breathing before launching you into the next cycle? The sixth law, gender, the hidden dance of masculine and feminine. Within you, inside every human being, a silent dance is happening at all times. A subtle exchange between two forces rarely understood, yet deeply influential in every decision, relationship, and creative impulse. The law of gender states that everything in the universe carries within it both the masculine and feminine principle. It's not about biological sex or social roles, it's about energy. And the most surprising thing, these energies are constantly negotiating inside you. Masculine energy is action, direction, logic. It points, cuts, structures. Feminine energy is receptivity, intuition, nurturing. It feels, embraces, connects. When these forces are in harmony, life flows with clarity and purpose. But when one dominates the other, conflict arises. Have you ever felt like you think too much and feel too little? Or feel too much and become paralyzed? These aren't flaws, they're signs of inner imbalance. Carl Jung said that the individuation process requires the meeting of the animus and anima, the archetypes of the inner masculine and feminine. It's as if within each person, a symbolic marriage is waiting to happen. And when that marriage doesn't occur, we become fragmented. We try to solve everything with logic and sink, or we drown in emotion and lose our way. The inner duality turns into a war, and like all wars, it leads to exhaustion. The biggest trap is thinking it's enough to be rational or sensitive. The truth is, only when we unite clarity and feeling, focus and listening, action and presence, can we truly create something real. Many failures don't happen due to lack of effort, but due to an excess of one side and the absence of the other. Projects that stall because they ignored intuition. Dreams that never leave the paper because they exist only in the emotional realm. No force alone is complete. And the cruelest part? From a young age, we're taught to deny one of these sides. Men are taught to suppress emotion, women to doubt their logic. And so, we grow up limping, trying to live with only half our soul. But what if the key to everything you're looking for isn't effort, but reconciliation? A return to wholeness. Because the truth is simple, the universe creates through union. Life is born from the meeting of opposites. What if what you feel is missing in your life is exactly the part of yourself you were taught to silence? The seventh law, transmutation, the forgotten power to change reality from the inside out. Some people go through deep losses and still manage to rise stronger. Others fall apart over small frustrations and are never the same again. Why? The answer may lie in the law of transmutation, our ability to transform internal states, like redirecting the course of a river. But this isn't a common skill. It's a forgotten power, because to transmute something, you must face it, and that's frightening. Most people prefer to run from it. Ancient alchemy spoke of turning lead into gold, but true alchemists knew the metaphor pointed to something else, the transmutation of raw ego into refined consciousness, fear into courage, anger into clarity, pain into creation. Today, neuroscience calls it neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to rewire itself. But even with science on our side, why do we remain trapped in the same states, reacting the same way, repeating the same patterns? The truth is that pain, when repressed, rots. But when faced head-on, it dissolves. Every intense emotion is condensed energy. If you don't express it, it gets stuck. If you release it unconsciously, it controls you. But if you observe it, feel it, and redirect it, it becomes raw material for something new. It's like fire. It can destroy or warm. It can devastate or forge. The difference lies in who's in control, and the real question is, who's in control of your emotions right now? In practice, to transmute is to choose a new meaning for something that seems fixed. It's turning resentment into wisdom. It's shifting from victim to creator. But this isn't done with cliches or superficial optimism. It takes presence, deep listening, responsibility. It requires stepping into the emotional basement without fear of what you might find. Because only those who face their shadow discover true light. And this is the point where many retreat. They don't want to feel what they've been hiding. But without that contact, real change doesn't happen. You can move houses, change partners, switch lifestyles, but you'll keep recreating the same emotions in new settings. Because the inner vibration hasn't changed. Transmuting isn't just changing how you feel, it's changing what you vibrate when you feel. And that changes everything. What if the feelings you fear the most are actually the hidden fuel to create the reality you've always been searching for? The eighth law, action, the invisible hand, that moves the universe you can imagine, visualize, affirm. But if you don't act, nothing changes. The law of action is simple, and precisely because of that, it's often ignored. It's as if part of modern spirituality forgot that the universe only moves when you do. Thinking is important, feeling is essential, but without a concrete gesture, even the most powerful intention dissolves in the wind. And here's the paradox. You don't create reality with just your mind. You confirm it with your steps. Quantum physics suggests that matter responds to observation, but that only happens when there's interaction, when the observer enters the system. In other words, it's not enough to want a new path, you have to take the first step. Even if it's small, even without guarantees, because it's movement that activates the invisible gears. The universe doesn't respond to wanting, it responds to coherence between what you feel, think, and do. But it's not just any action. It's the right action, the one that carries the same vibration as the desire that birthed it. If you dream of freedom but act out of fear, you manifest the opposite. If you want love but shut down to avoid getting hurt, what you receive is loneliness. Your action must reflect your internal state, not mask it, because the universe doesn't respond to appearances, it reads the real frequency behind each movement. How many times have you tried everything and nothing worked? Maybe it's because you were acting out of effort, not alignment. Doing more doesn't mean doing it right. Sometimes a simple gesture made with presence is worth more than 1,000 anxious attempts. True action transforms because it's authentic. It comes from your core, not from urgency. That's why, often, doing less with more awareness produces greater results. Most people wait for miracles without moving an inch. But a miracle is really the result of action in sync with something greater. It's not magic, it's subtle physics, a field that activates when you move with an open heart, with clear intention, with faith proven through action. Because faith, without action, is an empty wish. And action without soul is just mechanical movement. True creation requires both. What if what's missing in your life isn't more visualization or more faith, but simply the act of getting up and doing what you've been putting off for far too long? The ninth law, relativity, the hidden code. Behind comparison, why does the same problem feel unbearable to one person and manageable to another? What makes something difficult, if not your own perspective? The law of relativity reveals a subtle yet profound truth. Nothing has absolute value. Everything you feel, judge, or interpret passes through the filter of comparison. Your mind doesn't see the world as it is. It measures it against standards, memories, and references you don't even realize you carry. But what if those measurements are completely distorted? Cognitive psychology has shown that our brains create shortcuts to interpret reality. These shortcuts, called biases, filter everything you see. Without realizing it, you begin judging your life based on invisible comparisons. Your body, intelligence, success are rarely evaluated on their own. They're measured against something, or someone else. But who gave you that measuring stick? And why are you still using it as if it were universal truth? How many times have you felt inadequate just because you were looking at someone else's highlight reel? What if that comparison, instead of motivating you, is actually destroying your self-esteem? Relativity is deceptive. What felt like enough? Yesterday may seem insufficient today, not because it changed, but because you exposed yourself to a new measure. And so, your sense of worth fluctuates not because of your essence, but because of the mental images you've projected as ideal. Spirituality invites us to see beyond comparison. It says, you are unique, but the mind, conditioned, accelerated, wants proof. It wants standards. It wants to be better, or at least not worse. And in this game of invisible rulers, we end up living as if we're always behind. But behind what? An expectation? A model? An illusion? Suffering often doesn't come from reality, but from how you compare it. This law doesn't ask you to stop comparing altogether. That would go against the nature of the mind. It asks you to become aware, to notice when judgment arises and ask, compared to what am I measuring this? Because maybe you feel small, only because you're looking into the wrong mirror. And maybe the peace you've been looking for isn't in achieving more, but in seeing with new eyes. What if everything that seems to be missing in your life is just the result of an unfair comparison to something that was never yours? To begin with, the 10th law, polarity, the two sides of the same secret light and shadow, love and fear, success and failure. The law of polarity states something that may seem obvious at first. Everything has two sides. But the hidden truth is that these opposites aren't enemies, they're complements. Polarity doesn't divide the world, it balances it. Every emotion, every experience, every lesson carries within it a tension point between extremes. And the more you try to live only one side, the more the other manifests, hidden, disguised, or waiting just around the corner. Ancient wisdom has always taught this. The yin-yang symbol doesn't represent conflict. It represents integration. The shadow contains a spark of light. Pain carries the seed of healing. And good cannot exist without the contrast of evil. But in the attempt to live only in the positive, many people fall into a cycle of repression. They fake it, deny it, sweep what bothers them under the rug, and like a spring under pressure, what's been ignored returns, stronger, more chaotic, more urgent. Neuroscience confirms this cycle. Repressed emotions don't disappear, they accumulate. And what's not processed emotionally shows up in the body, in relationships, in life outcomes. It's like trying to live with half a soul, smiling on the outside, collapsing on the inside. Denied polarity doesn't vanish, it hides. And the more it's denied, the more it influences your choices, your encounters, your path. As if your shadow itself were begging to be seen. But what if the secret isn't to eliminate what's heavy, but to embrace it? Not in the sense of passively accepting everything, but in recognizing that what you reject is also part of you. And maybe, just maybe, that part you try so hard to erase holds the exact spark you need to become whole. When you stop running from polarity, you begin to understand that true balance isn't the absence of conflict. It's awareness of it. You don't need to become perfect. You need to become whole. And that only happens when light looks at shadow with respect. When good acknowledges that without evil, it wouldn't know what it is. When pain is seen as a passage, not as punishment, polarity stops being an enemy and becomes a teacher. Each extreme points to something that's calling for union. And in that space between opposites, clarity is born. What if the part of your life you reject the most is exactly the missing piece that would complete who you came here to be? The 11th law, generation, the mystery of creation. No one ever taught you. Everything that exists was once just an intention, a vague thought, a timid desire, a formless feeling. The law of generation states that nothing comes from nothing. Everything is generated. But this act of generating isn't immediate or impulsive. It takes time, energy, presence. True creation, the kind that transforms reality, only happens when opposing forces come together in harmony. Masculine and feminine, will and intuition, thought and emotion. And when this fusion doesn't happen, what's born is only noise. Have you ever wondered why so many promising ideas die before they even begin? Or why intense dreams never materialize despite your desire? The answer might lie in this silent failure of generation. Because wishing is easy, but holding a desire like something living inside you requires a different kind of awareness. It's like planting a seed and knowing how to wait. Watering, protecting, trusting, even when the soil seems empty. Quantum physics speaks of the collapse of the wave function, the moment when possibility becomes reality. But that collapse only happens when there's focus, when the field is nourished with attention and coherence. Generation requires continuity, not anxiety, presence, not urgency. That's why many dreams are lost, not because they were impossible, but because they weren't nurtured with enough energy to travel from the invisible to the visible. In ancient spirituality, generating was a sacred act, not just in the biological sense, but the symbolic. Creating something new required full alignment of the self, body, mind, and spirit. It was an inner marriage between the creative impulse and the receptive space. And maybe that's what's missing from many of our achievements. Today, not more effort, but more connection to the process. Because you don't give birth by pushing ideas. You give birth by sustaining the vibration until it takes form. You may think you're doing everything to manifest what you want, but are you really generating it? Or are you just waiting for the universe to do all the work for you? Generation is not a miracle. It's energetic construction, vibrational fertilization, and often the dreams you think have failed were never truly gestated. They were conceived in haste, without presence, without the inner space to grow. What if the thing you most desire hasn't happened, not because it's too far away, but because you haven't nurtured it like a life waiting to be born within you? The 12th law, oneness, the most well-built illusion of humanity. Do you believe you're separate from the world? That there's a me here and an other over there? This may be the deepest illusion in the human experience. The belief that we are isolated entities, each living our own story, protected by invisible boundaries. The law of oneness says otherwise. It states that everything, absolutely everything, is connected, not as a metaphor, but as a real structure of existence. And that truth, though it seems simple, changes everything. Modern physics already touches on this. The so-called unified field suggests that all matter and energy are part of a single vibrational matrix. Neuroscience, through mirror neurons, shows that we feel what others feel, even without realizing it. Spirituality has always declared, we are one. But if so many areas point in the same direction, why do we still feel alone, disconnected, separated from everything and everyone? The answer may lie in ego programming. From a young age, we're conditioned to see the world as an arena. Me versus the other. Compete, conquer, win. Separation becomes the rule, individualism the goal. But the ego is just a lens, not reality. And as long as that lens is the only one you use, you'll see the world in fragments, not as a whole. And in that fragmentation, fear is born. The fear of not having, not being, not belonging. Because when you feel separate, everything feels scarce. The law of oneness doesn't deny individuality, but it shows that individuality is just one face of the whole. That behind each of your thoughts, there is a frequency reverberating through the collective. That every gesture, no matter how small, affects the entire field. Nothing is neutral. Nothing is isolated. Your pain touches the world. Your healing does too. When you understand this, you begin to act differently, because you realize that the other is really a mirror of yourself, with a different face. This principle even changes how we make requests to the universe, because you're not sending a wish to something out there. You're interacting with the very field that created you. The divine isn't out there. It's in everything, and more than that, it's within you. This is the truth that so many traditions have tried to preserve. The spark, the breath, the essence. It doesn't matter what you call it. What matters is the recognition. You are part of the consciousness that creates reality, not as a spectator, but as an active point within the whole. What if everything you see on the outside is simply consciousness manifesting itself to you, through you, with different voices, faces, and forms from the same origin? The unwritten law, the silence, where the laws reside. What if there's a law that isn't in any book, a force that precedes all others, that doesn't need to be understood, only felt? This is the law that was never taught, because it can't be taught, only lived. Some call it higher will, others destiny. Mystics refer to it as pure consciousness. But the name doesn't matter. What matters is the silence where it dwells, an internal place prior to any desire, even prior to the very idea of self. There are rare moments when this presence reveals itself. It might happen in a moment of absolute stillness, in the midst of such intense pain that the ego dissolves, or during an experience where time seems to stop. In these moments, something within you knows there is an intelligence that doesn't depend on your effort, that there is something that has always been there, guiding, holding, witnessing, even when you thought you were alone. And then, for a brief second, everything makes sense and disappears. This law has no form, no rules. It doesn't answer questions. It dissolves them. It is the source point of all other laws, the field from which everything is born and to which everything returns. It isn't energy. It's what comes before energy. It isn't mind. It's what comes before mind. And the more you try to grasp it with words, the more it slips away. Because it only reveals itself when the seeking stops, when mental noise falls silent and presence takes the place of wanting. You can spend your whole life studying the laws of the universe, but without touching this silence, everything remains incomplete. Because this is the law that doesn't teach, it transforms. It doesn't guide. It dissolves what is excessive. It's like the space between the notes in a song. Without it, sound becomes noise. It is the sacred pause between one thought and the next, the stillness where consciousness recognizes itself. Have you felt that? Have you ever been in that nameless space? What if your entire search for answers has actually been an unconscious attempt to return to that original state? A state where there's no effort, no goal, no separation, no time, where everything simply is. There's no language that can capture this experience, only silence. And that's why the great masters, in the end, point not to words, but to the emptiness full of everything that still cannot be spoken. What if the deepest truth of the universe lies precisely in the moment you stop looking? The law of invisible repetition. Why you keep living the same things, even when everything changes. You move to a new city, change jobs, start a new relationship, But the same conflicts return. The same feelings, the same fears, the same outcomes. Sound familiar? This is the silent force of the law of invisible repetition. It's not written in classic spiritual texts, but it operates with surgical precision, like a hidden algorithm running in the background. It's life saying, you still haven't understood, and so it repeats, but it repeats in new forms, with new characters, like a test in disguise. Psychoanalysis calls it the repetition, compulsion, an unconscious impulse to relive old patterns, hoping that this time the ending will be different. But the ending only changes when you change on the inside. Esotericism goes further. It speaks of unresolved karma, soul lessons that manifest until they're integrated. No matter the language, the message is the same. What you don't transform repeats, and it repeats with frightening precision. It's like being trapped in a maze made from the pieces of your own history. You run down new paths, only to come face to face with the same mirrors. Why? Because the vibration is still the same. You can change the setting, the names, the actions. But if what's vibrating in you hasn't changed, reality won't change either. It's a holographic repetition where your internal emotional content writes the external script, and you don't even realize you're acting it out. The truth is, these cycles don't want to punish you. They want to wake you up. Each repetition is a disguised invitation to look at what you've always avoided, to feel what you've always suppressed, to heal what you've always postponed. But the ego hates this process. It prefers to blame others, accuse bad luck, give up before facing the root. And that's why the same mistakes seem to happen again, when in fact, they never stopped. They just changed clothes. Have you ever wondered why certain situations follow you like shadows? Why certain types of people keep appearing in your life, with minimal differences, always bringing the same conflicts? Maybe they're not coincidences. Maybe they're mirrors, codes, patterns begging to be broken. Because until the cycle is understood, it repeats, and the universe patiently waits for you to see. What if every face that reappears, every story that returns with a new name, is just life offering you one more chance to do it differently, from the inside out? What if the universe is waiting for you to stop searching so it can deliver? You search, you chase, you plan, you affirm, you stay disciplined. You take courses, repeat mantras, set goals. And still, something doesn't quite click. Life slips through the cracks. It's as if the more you try to grasp it, the farther it drifts. What if the problem isn't your effort? What if the very act of seeking is what's keeping you from what you want? This is the loophole no one dares to consider, the possibility that the universe is waiting for you to stop. It sounds counterintuitive. After all, we live immersed in a culture of achievement, where giving up equals failure, where letting go means losing. But the deepest spirituality, the kind you don't explain but only live, whispers something different. Sometimes you only receive when you stop wanting. Because when desire is too intense and born from lack, it vibrates absence. And absence, like any vibration, manifests. So you keep asking, and the universe keeps echoing back, not yet. The paradox is real. Only those who know how to let go truly manifest. Only those who already feel complete attract. It's like breath. You can only breathe deeply when you're not gasping. The universe works the same way. It responds to the frequency of lightness, openness, presence, not to anxiety disguised as faith. And that calls for a kind of surrender that isn't passive, it's active surrender, a allowing, a trusting without demanding, a knowing that what's truly yours never needs to be forced. The mind, driven by control, hates this. It wants a method, a step-by-step, guarantees. But the manifestation field isn't activated through control, it's activated through resonance. It's feeling that opens the way, not forcing, and feeling only happens when you stop, when you quiet the noise of the search, when you create inner space for something new to enter. Because what is new can't arrive in a place already occupied by excess, urgency, and expectation. Have you noticed how certain things simply happened when you weren't trying? When you were relaxed, open, just living? Those moments weren't coincidences, they were signals. The universe acts when you create space, when you stop contracting around what you want. And if that's true, then the final secret may not lie in doing more, but in being more, being presence, being space, being trust. What if the thing you've been searching for has simply been waiting for you to stop searching, so it can finally arrive?